Happiness isn't about chasing big, dramatic changes. It's about stacking small, consistent wins that make life lighter, brighter, and more enjoyable. The truth is, you don't have to overhaul your world to feel better. You just need 1% more joy today than you had yesterday. That's it. And in this talk, I'm going to share 3 simple, practical happiness hacks that can make that shift possible. Let's be real. Happiness isn't some magical switch you flip on. It's more like a dimmer. You turn it up a little at a time. And the good news, you don't need to crank it to 100 to feel the difference. Just 1% more today than yesterday. That's progress. That's winning. Hack V1Z, the gratitude reset. When was the last time you paused and actually named one thing you're thankful for? Not the big stuff like a house or a job, but the little things. The hot coffee that hit just right this morning, the friend who texted you a meme, even the fact that you're breathing right now. Gratitude rewires your brain to notice what's working instead of obsessing over what's not. That's the reset button. Hack V2I, move your body, move your mood. Happiness isn't just in your head, it's in your body. A 2-minute stretch, a quick walk outside, even turning up a song and moving like nobody's watching. Your body releases chemicals that instantly shift your state. You don't have to run a marathon, just take one step. Literally. Hack Me 3, the 5-minute rule. We overcomplicate happiness. We think it requires big vacations, new jobs, or perfect routines. Now try this instead. Pick one thing that lifts your mood, a book, meditation, cleaning that corner of your desk, and give it just 5 minutes. Not an hour, not half a day, just 5 small actions repeated daily stack into a life that feels lighter. So here's the takeaway. Happiness isn't out there waiting for you in some future version of your life. It's right here, in gratitude, in movement, in 5 minutes of action. Do that and you're not chasing happiness, you're building it, 1% at a time. We live in a world where the idea of happiness is often tied to big milestones. We tell ourselves that we'll finally feel good once we land that dream job, buy the house, get into shape, or cross some huge achievement off our list. The problem with that mindset is it sets happiness on a moving target. You get one thing and suddenly your brain raises the bar again. It's exhausting and it makes happiness feel like something always out of reach. The truth is, happiness doesn't usually arrive in a grand moment. It shows up in small wins, the little choices we make every single day that build momentum in the right direction. Think about it like compound interest. If you save $1, it doesn't feel like much. But add one more tomorrow, and one more the next day, and suddenly that small action becomes something bigger over time. Your happiness works the same way. You don't need a giant breakthrough to feel better. You just need 1% more today than yesterday. And that might look like something as simple as getting out of bed when you didn't want to, choosing to drink water instead of soda, sending a text to someone you care about, or even pausing long enough to notice the sunset before you walk inside. Each of those small wins feels like nothing in the moment, but together, they change the way you see yourself and the way you experience your day. The mind loves progress, no matter how small it is. When you take a small action, you're teaching yourself that you're capable, that you can move forward, and that life is not as stuck as it sometimes feels. And the beauty of this is that small wins are sustainable. Anyone can celebrate one good choice, one step in the right direction, one positive decision that builds confidence brick by brick. Even when life feels overwhelming, there's always a small win available to you. And stacking those wins consistently is what shifts your overall state. You don't have to wait until the big changes arrive to start feeling happier. The foundation is being built in the small, ordinary moments that most people overlook. Gratitude is one of those things that sounds nice in theory, but most people treat it like background noise. You hear about it in books, you see it in inspirational quotes, and maybe even write it down on a list once in a while. But what makes gratitude powerful isn't just knowing it's good for you. It's actually using it as a reset button for your brain. The mind has a natural bias toward negativity. It's wired to scan for what's wrong, what could go wrong, and what already went wrong. That might have been useful when survival meant watching out for predators or protecting ourselves from danger. But in today's world, it often just leaves us stressed, distracted, and focused on problems that steal our peace. Gratitude interrupts that loop. It forces your brain to notice what's working instead of what's broken. You don't need to wait for a perfect moment to practice it either. Gratitude can happen anywhere at any time. Standing in line at the grocery store, sitting in traffic, waiting for your coffee to brew, you can stop and name one thing you're thankful for in that moment. And it doesn't have to be big. In fact, the smaller the better. A warm shower. The way the air feels first thing in the morning. That one friend who always makes you laugh. Even something as simple as having clean water to drink or the ability to see and hear the world around you. The point isn't to chase grand gestures, but to rewire your focus toward things you'd normally overlook. The more you practice it, the more automatic it becomes. At first, it might feel forced, like you're just going through the motions. But repetition changes your filter. Instead of waking up and scanning for what's wrong, your mind starts scanning for what's good. That small shift influences your mood, your decisions, your relationships, even your health. Gratitude has been shown to lower stress levels, improve sleep, and boost resilience. It's like building mental armor, but instead of hardening you, it softens your perspective and keeps you grounded in the reality of what you already have. The connection between your body and your mood is one of the most underrated tools for happiness. People tend to think happiness is something you figure out in your head, like if you can just think the right thought, everything will feel better. But the truth is, your body plays just as big of a role, maybe even bigger. The way you move, the way you breathe, the way you carry yourself physically sends signals to your brain that shape how you feel emotionally. You've probably noticed it without even realizing. On days when you're slouched over, barely moving, staring at a screen, you feel drained. But the moment you stand up, stretch, take a walk, or even just roll your shoulders back and take a deep breath, something shifts. It's not dramatic, but it's real. That's your body giving your brain a new message. Science backs this up too. Movement releases chemicals, endorphins, serotonin, dopamine that literally change your mood on a biological level. You don't have to earn those chemicals with hours in the gym or some hardcore workout routine. They show up even with the smallest actions. A brisk walk outside where you actually look at the trees instead of your phone. Dancing around your living room to a song that makes you feel alive. Taking a few minutes to stretch when you've been sitting too long. These little moments of movement tell your nervous system that you're safe, that you're active, and that you're in control. And when your body feels that, your mind follows. The best part is that movement doesn't require motivation to start. Most people wait to feel like it before they move. But ironically, moving is what creates the feeling you're waiting for. If you're tired, sluggish, or stuck in a bad mood, the smallest action, standing up, walking to the kitchen for a glass of water, or just stepping outside to get fresh air, breaks the inertia. That physical shift interrupts mental patterns, and suddenly, the problem that felt overwhelming a few minutes ago doesn't feel quite as heavy. Movement doesn't erase challenges, but it puts you in a better state to face them. Happiness isn't always about thinking your way into feeling better. Sometimes it's about moving your way there first. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that happiness requires a massive block of time, perfect conditions, or some life-changing event. We convince ourselves that if we can't dedicate hours to exercise, meditation, reading, or whatever it is we think will make us feel better, then it's not even worth starting. That all, or nothing mindset is what keeps so many people stuck, waiting for the perfect day that never comes. The 5-minute rule destroys that excuse. It says you don't have to wait, you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to overhaul your whole schedule. All you need is 5 minutes. 5 minutes to do something small, something good, something that nudges you forward instead of keeping you stuck. 5 minutes may not sound like much, but it's enough to create momentum. Read one page of a book. Step outside and take a short walk. Write down 3 things you're thankful for. Stretch on the floor. Even organize one drawer in your desk. The action itself doesn't have to be big. It's the signal it sends to your brain that matters. It tells you, I did something. I'm capable. I'm moving forward, and that tiny burst of progress releases a sense of accomplishment that fuels your energy for more. You might even find that once the 5 minutes are up, you keep going. But even if you don't, you've already won because you've proven that you can act even when your brain tells you it's not worth it. The trick behind this is lowering the barrier. When you think you need an hour, the task feels heavy and overwhelming. But when you give yourself permission to do just 5 minutes, it becomes manageable. Anyone can find 5 minutes. Anyone can take a small step. And the funny thing is, those 5 minutes, when repeated, begin to stack. You meditate for 5 minutes today, 5 tomorrow, and suddenly you've built a routine. You write for 5 minutes, and before long, you've written a chapter. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. The 5-minute rule takes away the pressure of perfection and replaces it with progress, and progress, no matter how small, is the foundation for lasting happiness. A huge source of unhappiness comes from putting energy into things we have no control over. We replay conversations in our head, wishing we had said something different. We scroll through the news, feeling helpless about events happening across the world. We compare ourselves to people online and get frustrated about outcomes we can't influence. That constant focus on what's outside our control is like pouring water into a bucket with holes. It drains us without ever filling us. The truth is, the fastest way to feel lighter is to redirect attention back to the things you can actually do something about. It doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending problems don't exist. It means separating what's within your hands from what isn't, and choosing to invest your energy where it will actually make a difference. Think about it. You can't control the weather, but you can control whether you carry an umbrella. You can't control how someone talks to you, but you can control how you respond. You can't control every outcome at work, but you can control your effort, your preparation, and your attitude. The more you train yourself to focus on those pieces, the more empowered you feel because you're not wasting energy fighting battles you can't win. And with that shift comes a calmer mind. Anxiety feeds on uncertainty, but when you place your attention on controllable actions, it gives you something solid to hold on to. It doesn't need to be complicated either. If the day feels overwhelming, ask yourself one question: what is in my control right now? Sometimes the answer is as simple as drinking water, stepping away from your phone, or choosing to breathe slowly for a minute. Those choices may look small from the outside, but they're powerful because they're yours. They belong to you, and they remind you that even in the middle of chaos, you have agency. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Instead of spiraling over things outside your influence, your brain begins scanning for actions you can take, no matter how small. And those actions not only improve your happiness, they also create momentum that often influences outcomes more than you realize, because staying grounded in what you can control is where real progress begins. One of the most overlooked ingredients of happiness is connection. Not the kind that comes from having the perfect social circle or throwing yourself into a room full of people, but the kind that comes from simple, genuine interactions. Humans are wired for connection, and yet so many people hold back because they feel like they're not enough, or they worry about saying the wrong thing, or they think they need to present a polished version of themselves to be accepted. That search for perfection in relationships ends up creating distance. What actually builds happiness isn't perfect interaction. It's real connection. It's choosing to show up as you are, flaws and all, and allowing space for others to do the same. You've probably noticed how even the smallest exchanges can lift your mood. A smile from a stranger, a quick hello from a neighbor, a short text conversation that reminds you someone's thinking of you. These moments don't take much, but they leave an impact because they break the illusion of isolation. We get so caught up in our own heads with our problems and our routines that we forget how powerful it is to simply acknowledge and be acknowledged by another person. Connection doesn't have to be deep to matter, it just has to be genuine. It's also important to realize that perfection often kills connection before it starts. When you're trying to craft the perfect response, look perfect, or act perfectly composed, you're not really present, you're performing. And people can sense that. What draws others to you is honesty, not flawlessness. The laugh that comes out too loud, the awkward comment, the moment you admit you're having a rough day. Those are the things that make you human, and being human is what others actually relate to. Real bonds are formed when walls come down, not when they're stacked higher. Connection doesn't always require hours of time or huge effort. It might be sitting with someone you love without distractions, giving a compliment you were thinking but almost didn't say, or asking a coworker how they're really doing instead of rushing past with a quick fine. These small acts remind both you and the other person that you're not alone, and that reminder is one of the most reliable pathways to happiness. The way you talk to yourself shapes more of your happiness than most people realize. Self-talk is like a constant background soundtrack playing in your head, and whether that soundtrack is encouraging or critical makes a huge difference in how you feel day to day. The problem is that a lot of us default to harsh, negative self-talk without even noticing it. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to a friend. We beat ourselves up for mistakes, we downplay our accomplishments, and we carry around this subtle voice that keeps telling us we're behind, we're not enough, or we should be doing more. That voice creates stress, shame, and a constant sense of pressure that eats away at happiness. Upgrading your self-talk doesn't mean lying to yourself or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing words that actually support you instead of tearing you down. One of the simplest shifts is changing I have to into I get to. It sounds small, but it reframes responsibility into opportunity. I have to go to work becomes I get to go to work, which reminds you that not everyone has a job and yours provides stability. I have to work out becomes I get to work out, which reframes it as a privilege to move your body instead of a punishment. That small language shift moves you from a place of burden to a place of gratitude, and that change in perspective lightens the load you carry. Another part of upgrading self-talk is noticing when you're spiraling into criticism and intentionally interrupting it. Instead of letting I'm terrible at this repeat in your head, you replace it with I'm learning, or this is challenging, but I'm improving. Instead of saying I always mess things up, you shift to, I didn't get it right this time, but I'll adjust. These aren't cheesy affirmations. They're realistic, kinder alternatives that help you move forward instead of staying stuck. The more often you practice it, the more automatic it becomes, until your inner voice sounds more like a coach than a critic. And when the person you spend the most time with, yourself, is speaking in a supportive, encouraging way, your entire outlook changes. One of the biggest traps people fall into when it comes to happiness is thinking it has to be achieved in one big leap. We put pressure on ourselves to make huge changes all at once, to suddenly transform our habits, our mindset, or our lifestyle overnight. And when that doesn't happen, we feel defeated and end up doing nothing at all. The truth is, perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. Doing something, anything, that makes you 1% better today is infinitely more valuable than waiting for the perfect plan that never gets started. 1% may feel insignificant in the moment, but over time it becomes the difference between staying stuck and moving forward. Think about how small actions compound. Reading one page doesn't make you a scholar, but one page a day turns into 30 by the end of the month. Taking a short walk doesn't make you an athlete, but consistent walks improve your health in ways you barely notice until you look back. Smiling at one person doesn't transform the world, but it shifts the energy of your interaction, and maybe theirs too. Happiness grows the same way, incrementally, consistently, quietly building on itself until one day you realize you're living with a lighter heart than before. The idea of 1% is powerful because it lowers the pressure. You don't have to overhaul your life today. You don't have to suddenly become positive, grateful, or disciplined all at once. All you have to do is something slightly better than yesterday. That might be going to bed 5 minutes earlier, drinking one more glass of water, or replacing one negative thought with a neutral one. These are not glamorous changes, but they're sustainable, and sustainability is what keeps momentum alive. Even in the hardest seasons of life, 1% is possible. When everything feels heavy, when motivation is low, when the big picture looks overwhelming, there is still a tiny action you can take to prove to yourself that you haven't given up. That 1% isn't about results, it's about identity. It tells your mind and body that you're still moving, still trying, still capable of making choices that matter. And that belief, repeated daily, is what slowly turns into lasting happiness. Happiness doesn't have to be complicated. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment or chasing some huge breakthrough. It's about the little things you choose to do today that stack into something bigger tomorrow. Gratitude that shifts your focus. Movement that lifts your mood. 5 minutes of action that builds consistency. Choosing what's in your control, leaning into connection, speaking to yourself with kindness, and remembering that 1% is always better than 0. These are not grand gestures, but they're powerful because they're doable. And when you add them up day after day, they create momentum you can actually feel. Happiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you build one small choice at a time.